Hello everyone, I hope you've had a great day so far and that you're doing well. For this video we'll be going through an unboxing and review of Magneto. This particular version of Magneto is from the Build-A-Figure Colossus as part of the Marvel Legends series, focusing on the Age of Apocalypse. So this is the Age of Apocalypse Magneto, for those who weren't fully aware. So it's been a little while since I've done a Marvel figure review, last one being Apocalypse. But I thought I would actually try and kick it back off again. Ooh, that didn't sound great. And started the series with Magneto. Now, oddly enough, and coincidentally enough is probably better to say, there's also been some recent reissues of one of the MAFEX Magneto comic versions as well, which is actually it's the same Age of Apocalypse Magneto. So I'm also eyeing that one off, and that's actually over at Hobbylink Japan, where I get most of my Playmo from. But they do have two Magneto versions, the original comic version and the Age of Apocalypse Magneto version. So I will actually include links to that just because it's all Magneto themed, and I'm actually interested to see how the Medicom do their Marvel figures compared to how Hasbro do all these Marvel Legends, which is pretty much what I've been familiar with thus far. So keep an eye on that if you're curious for some more figures of Magneto, especially given that one of them will be another Age of Apocalypse variant, and the other being his very original old school look. Anyway, Magneto from the Marvel Legends series. So I think this was the second series that came out of the Age of Apocalypse. So yeah, I was umming and eyeing on this for a little bit, but I thought I actually quite like this version of Magneto from Age of Apocalypse. So I thought, grab it. I'm not going to be grabbing too many figures, so it didn't seem too bad. Plus it was also on special, so that helped sweeten the deal. So here we have the front of the box for Magneto with the particular X-Men stylized logo for the Age of Apocalypse. Most of the figure is inside. Looks like we'll get a alternative head, two alternative hands, and some effect parts, I suspect, to simulate Magneto's manipulation of magnetism. I would definitely say it's a very interesting take on Magneto. Pretty much his usual costume look, but something about the longer braided hair just was different. So that's the front of the box. Side of the box we have an illustration of Magneto. So yes, even though it's still his crimson and purple look, he's funnily enough a good guy this time around. We also have a shot of Apocalypse in the background, and then same on the other side as well. Now in terms of the back of the box, which we did see a bit before, so I did mention this is part of the Build-A-Figure range. The Build-A-Figure in question will be Colossus, so Magneto will not have any of the figure parts for Colossus. They will be through Rogue, Cyclops, Sabretooth, Shadowcat, Iceman, and Legion. Awkwardly enough, Legion is the odd one out in the sense that he was not native to the Age of Apocalypse quote-unquote timeline. He initiated it, but hey, he had good intent until weird things happen. We have another shot of Magneto as well as a bit of a blurb. So remember, this is an alternate version of Magneto now. So Magneto casts off his anti-human sentiments and carries on Xavier's dream of peaceful coexistence, therefore founding the X-Men. So I dare say, spoiler alert, Legion who is, I don't know if they've changed it since, at the time he was the son of Charles Xavier, and Legion really wanted to help realize his father's dream and thought removing Magneto in the past would be a good way of doing it. And as he was about to, I dare say, land a killing blow, his father got in the way and basically took the blow instead. So, yes, Legion basically created a bit of a timeline paradox, whatever, which basically was the Age of Apocalypse. It was actually not a bad series. It's a very interesting twist on things. People, good people were bad, bad people were good, and all sorts of in-betweens. I do like the art style though. Okay, so now that we've had a look at outside the box, let's crack open Magneto and have a better look at his inclusions and take a look at the actual figure and see how much articulation he has. And with Magneto out of his packaging, now before I get into Magneto, the actual very back of his little backboard is once again that nice little interesting face of Apocalypse. So very imposing. And as I did say back in the Apocalypse unboxing, foreshadowing for this exact reason. So there we go. That was an interesting little tidbit. So here we have Magneto, good old master of magnetism. So here we have the Magneto figure, and I haven't changed anything out from what he was packaged with, so this is pretty much him exactly out of the packaging. Looks like you should definitely have some interesting points of articulation, so that's very cool. So we'll come back to you. In terms of his accessories that he comes with, so we have the alternate head sculpt with him wearing his helmet and his very typical glazed eyes look. I feel I actually prefer this head over the other one. So we have that. And we have two alternative hands, pretty much in a clenched fist position. And then lastly, we have these little purpley magnetic swirls. Now, I'm assuming they just swirl around his hands. I actually don't know how they actually swirl. I was actually trying to see if there was any instructions, but apparently no, there's no instructions on how they swirl, so I don't know if they're supposed to swirl around his closed hands or if they swirl around his well, it almost looks like it's supposed to swirl around his open hands, so I guess just for sake of the video, how does that look? It looks absolutely terrible. Absolutely terrible. So, I obviously haven't done this very well. You can obviously tell this is my first experience with some of these figures, trying to figure out how some of their effects work. Yes, so not the best manipulation of those accessories, but I guess that's just to give an idea of what it would look like. We'll definitely need to do a bit of research to understand how these work for Instagram and things like that later on. So we'll put those over there. How about we replace one hand, so they will come out just like that. There will be a movable pin in there, so definitely be very careful with that. And we will just replace one of his hands with a closed fist. So closed fist, open fist, and let's see how easy it is to take his head off. So that's his original head being taken off, and before we put on his other head. So his cape is detachable. It's also very thick and sturdy. So that'll just pretty much sit over that and rest on his shoulders et al. And then you just attach his other head. So there we go, that's Magneto with his other head affixed. Now, in terms of articulation, what can he do? In fact, I kind of wish I'd... How about... We'll take this off, and the reason being, I have a weird feeling it's going to actually impact the articulation, so let's do that. And then we can adequately put Magneto's head back on. So Magneto with his cape detached, so in terms of articulation, his head can definitely go left to right. Probably can do a 360, but because of his hair extensions, it does make it quite difficult. It can also move down and up, so he does have some degree of flexibility with moving his head around. In terms of his arms, so starting with his shoulders, so arm can go out, which is good. Arm can go forward, which is good. Arm can also go back, which is still good. In fact, arm can do a full 360 in the shoulder socket, not a problem. Putting his arm out, he will have a 360 turn within the bicep tricep area. He does have some type of elbow bend, albeit not the best one, but he definitely has one. I dare say it's probably because some of his forearm coverings intersects with some of that elbow bend. His hands can also do a full 360 within the wrist, as we saw, because it's pretty much joined by basically a pin. So that is the movement in his arms. So that's actually not too bad at all. In terms of his waist can move left and right like so. Can't do a full 360 because it's pretty much impeded by his belt. As you can see, it's just me turning it to the side. Hasn't dislodged it in full, but you can see that it does stretch out some of the belt to some degree. But at least he does have some of that ability to twist as well. Just move his arms out like that. He does have a abdominal crunch, very significant one of that, and he can also somewhat go backwards. So yes, it's a very interesting look, although if he's wearing his cape he probably won't be doing much of this backwards one as much, but yes, that's a very decent ab crunch. In terms of the legs, just move these up a bit more. That will be the extensiveness of his leg splits. Forgot what they were for a minute there. But in saying that, he will be able to move his leg all the way that way, and he will not be able to actually move his leg backwards at the hip on account of his posterior, which is surprisingly decently detailed. So that's not too bad. At least he can still move forward with the leg like that. In terms of the leg, which will be the same both sides, so like his arms, there will be a full 360 rotation at the upper leg, which is good. In terms of his knee bend, so if I just bring out his leg like that, he will be able to bring it down that way. In fact, I'm just wondering, does he have a dual knee bend? Yes, he's actually got two knee bends. Yes, you can actually use them both. So he'll have a knee bend as part of this joint up here, knee bend down there. So that's using both, using one, and using the top one. So that's not too bad at all. So that was that. It felt like he has, yes, he does have 360 movements at his lower legs, which is good, I guess. Painful, but good. And in terms of his feet, he will be able to move them forward and back on this item here, so that's pretty good. No left and right, I'm afraid, though, just all the way back like that. So if he was ever levitating, that would be a good way to pose his feet in that downward position. Otherwise, they can also go up like that, which does seem a little bit painful. Now, while I have him, will Magneto stand? The answer is the current answer seems to be yes, he can't. Which probably explains why there's two little peg holes in the base of his feet. So Magneto seems to have some standing difficulties. Oh, no, there we go. He will stand. You will just need to play around with his leg orientation. So definitely do not expect him to stand with his feet dead straight like that. Although I guess if you lean him forward, he probably can. Otherwise, you very much have to just tilt his legs to the side into probably a more natural type of pose. So that is the articulation. Now that we've done that, I guess we can pull off his head yet again, put his cape on, and then try to reattach his head. There we go. Now that there's a bit more of a resounding click. Now his cape is going to actually add bulk, so you will need to try to, well, I guess you can stand him up. So I've just posed him like that. So now that he has his cape on, in terms of Magneto, so he's pretty much, in the Age of Apocalypse, he's still sporting his usual crimson and purple motif. As you can see quite prominently. His trimmings on his cape area still sports the purple and the silver items as well. The detailing on his helm isn't too bad, and they did reproduce the very glazed eye look, and obviously they also have done his braids as well, and he does have some hair coming out of his helmet as well, because this version of Magneto decided to grow his hair out. So I would say overall he's actually not too bad. I think there's still some colours missing. Bits of his gauntlets and down here on his boots, I think there should be some more of the crimson on those just to bring out the colours, but overall it's not too bad. It is, generally pretty much a two-tone colour palette for Magneto, and he has been like that for quite some time, up until probably the last decade, where he's actually sported different colours. I think he's done the white colours, I think he's done black and some others. To be honest, Magneto for me will probably always be crimson and purple. And he was also a great playable character in X-Men Clone Wars, the game on the Mega Drive. That was a really good game. Interesting game at the time, because the Phalanx Covenant also happened around a similar time, and boy was that traumatizing. Anyway, so we've looked at his accessories, his articulation, which is actually pretty good. We've had a look at some of his colours and some of his detailing. I'd say his detailing is actually quite well. He's obviously quite well ripped, surprisingly enough. But yeah, he's been detailed quite well. Got some decent playability. Final thoughts on Magneto. In fact, let's put Magneto down. So, Magneto, what do I think of you? So it's very cool that you've been given some alternative hands and a alternative head sculpt. So it's nice to have some of that playability in that sense. The additional effects are really cool. If you can figure out how to correctly attach them on, I'm sure there are proper ways of doing it. As I mentioned earlier, just a case of doing some research. Colors are good, very typical Magneto. Now, I've always quite appreciated Magneto, more so after Age of Apocalypse, and probably even more so now that he's no longer a typical villain. So I'm actually glad I've picked this version up of Magneto. It's been a while since I've picked up any type of X-Men figures. And I do remember the Age of Apocalypse storyline. It actually was a very interesting take on things. And I do know some media, probably within the last decade as well, has tried to do it. I think Wolverine and the X-Men was getting very close to trying to hint at an Age of Apocalypse future. And then the show got cancelled. Unfortunate. Would have been nice to actually see that continue on, but who knows, maybe with the X-Men 92 animation coming out next year, that could be something they possibly explore. They have demonstrated in the past many times doing alternative timelines, so who knows, maybe they will look at a Age of Apocalypse one, although they did do a bit of a parallel to one, if I remember correctly. I think it was Storm and Wolverine traveling through time. Yes, I think they've had a loose parallel to one. But anyway, we'll see. Going back to my thoughts about Magneto, I'd say overall, pretty solid figure. It's got some good playability, colors are good, accessories are also good. So if you're a fan of Magneto, irrespective of Age of Apocalypse or not, I'd say it's a worthy addition to anyone's collection. For anyone collecting X-Men related things, it'll probably be a good item. Anyone for the Age of Apocalypse will probably quite enjoy this, given that this Build-A-Figure and the previous Build-A-Figure, well, for one of them anyway, I think there was 2 Age of Apocalypse Build-A-Figures, are very much integral to the Age of Apocalypse. And then anyone who's just a general Marvel figure collector, I'd probably say this would definitely be a good addition to the collection. I think there's another Magneto variant floating around at some point as well, so I will probably see if I can grab that. I think it was part of the House of M set, which may have had a buildable Sentinel of some description. We'll see. That'll be later down the track. And I think that will bring us to the end of this unboxing and review of Magneto. Still trying to find my feet with some of these unboxings and reviews. I'll say it now, they'll probably continue like this until the end of the year being 2022, given that we're on the cusp of hitting December. And then I think at the end of December, early Jan, I might look at maybe trying to script out some more followable points for doing these reviews to try and basically condense them. I think there's probably a bit of additional waffling that's probably not needed, but it's okay. I like to be able to converse with people. Thank you very much for watching this unboxing and review video. Feel free to leave a like, a comment, subscribe if you enjoyed the content. All of this does help support the channel, and I do greatly appreciate it. Extra content can also be found on my Instagram account, link below. And as I mentioned at the very beginning, I'll also have 2 links to the MAFEX Magneto Age of Apocalypse version and the original comic version over at Hobbylink Japan. If you were potentially after some alternative figures of Magneto, from different manufacturers, producers, things like that. So definitely have a look at those. I think those ones potentially will be some very cool figures, and probably a bit of an upscale from these ones. Although price point wise, I think it will definitely be an upscale. With all that being said, stay safe and take care, and I will catch you all in a future video, which will either be more Marvel reviews or other content on my channel. See ya.